I'm Ashton Addison from Blockwest Capital for Investment Pitch Media and the Crypto Coin Show. And today on Blockchain Interviews, we have Dr. Nick Almond, the founder of finance.vote. Nick, welcome to the show. Pleasure to see you. And I'm excited for this discussion into the world of governance in DeFi.
Great to meet you, Ashton. Yeah, thank you for inviting me along.
You're very welcome. Let's dive straight into this because I know your team has a suite of decentralized applications that is impressive, really, but there's only so much we can talk about because it seems your team is expanding into every facet of solutions that are needed in DeFi. There is a lot to solve right now. If you could kick it off for the viewers with just a high-level overview of finance.vote and some of those solutions, then we can dive into those details.
Sure. So yeah, we're like you've mentioned, we're quite a broad spectrum kind of DeFi project. I would say very high level, what we're interested in is decentralization. So all of our applications facilitate the creation of new decentralized applications themselves, new ways of doing governance. And we think the route into decentralization is by incorporating more people and getting involved in their projects, and that requires voting technology. So we're kind of building everything that DAOs need through the medium of giving people a voice, giving people a vote, and building new and interesting ways of doing blockchain governance.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, and thanks for that, Nick. And the DAOs have been around since people have heard of the Ethereum DAO back in 5 years ago now, but it seems there's still a lot to be done. Can you talk about in the DeFi industry, in the more recent years and in DAOs, what are some of the problems that your team saw pinpointed and some of the solutions that you're looking to grow so we can really take both of these to the next level?
Sure. So yeah, I mean, it was the DAO that probably made me really fall down the crypto rabbit hole. So I was interested in Bitcoin for a long time. I used to teach cryptography, but I ended up working in governance in large institutions. And the potential to build organizations on the internet is the thing that I thought is really going to change the world completely. And so the DAO, as we kind of know, ended very badly through to a kind of smart contract bug, which we see all the time. But that was particularly bad one because it had, a huge amount of the Ethereum assets at the time locked in it. And it was all very traumatic for everyone involved. And it kind of put everyone off for a few years. But very recently, over the last year or two, they've started to kind of really rush back into the scene. So what they facilitate is, I think of them as hubs of human coordination. So they're ways for people to collaborate on the internet in ways that we've never been able to do that before. So organizations, they're basically a blank canvas to do any kind of collaborative activity. People can work together in them, create value, productive outcomes. And DAOs allow that to happen on the internet with people we don't necessarily trust or know. So the potential of them is just absolutely amazing. They're kind of organizations are like the building blocks of humanity. So, but they're very, very early. At the moment, we've just been using them to pool assets and decide how to spend them together with very rudimentary voting technologies. And we're basically trying to build the upgrade so we can do much more stuff in DAOs. We can collaborate more effectively. And they're all implicitly built around tokens, and they have their own crypto economies. So what we've been trying to build is the things that will build sustainable DAOs. So things that will allow them to bootstrap a new economy, manage their tokens effectively, reach consensus, be able to come to good decisions, and also manage the assets that they've got. So there's a lot of foundational work that needs to be done to really take this idea of decentralized organizations into the where it needs to go for really be transformative for how we work and collaborate on the internet. So we're building these individual little modular applications that each do something that we feel these kind of organizations need. Like organizations need a payroll department, they need ways for managing their assets, for coordinating people. And each of these dApps do one of those things that we think decentralized organizations will need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well said. And yeah, there are so many functions that normal centralized organizations do that need to be programmed into decentralized autonomous organizations. And the DAO really was so rudimentary, having only a couple functions. As more people start to move organizations onto the internet, they're going to need all these functions. And there are so many of them. And I know your team's already been working on some of the foundational dApps for, building a little bit more functionality into DAOs. Maybe you could talk about where you started building those dApps and what you saw as most important to expand into the DAO functionality.
Sure. So organizations in the centralized world, I've worked in big ones in the past and been involved in governance systems, but I'm very aware that what needs to happen in DAOs is very different. So, in conventional organizations, you can kind of be in the same building as everyone. You can manage them in very different ways, and they don't generally have tokens. So they're much more implicitly about digital assets, and so it's about managing those assets and being able to work with people that you might not even be able to look at, and they're just accounts. So you have to deal with things like Sybil resistance, which is when people set up multiple accounts and start to attack governance systems with them. So each individual bit of what we've created is designed to, at the moment, go through the life cycle of these organizations. So everything from being able to raise some capital and vest the tokens properly. So we're starting to see, as the market's got a bit more dicey, some teams are dumping tokens and rug pulls are starting to happen. So we've got a application called Bank, which is about storing those assets and emitting them in over time in a way that users can trust. So the teams can't dump them because they don't have access to them. And the initial investors are vested in a way where they don't have huge amounts of liquidity that allows them to control the market. So the kind of first component is managing the initial asset distribution well, and then bootstrapping liquidity. So we've got a token auction, which is a bit like an IDO launchpad, but it's built around token price discovery. And the ether collected with that goes to bootstrapping a decentralized market. And then we've got a liquidity mining solution called Yield, which then goes on to build exchange depth for the size of the organization, and it all implicitly linked to governance. So the Yield application is liquidity mining, but that the users control, and it stops huge token whales coming in and taking all the tokens. So that's the kind of our bootstrapping suite that gets everything up and running. And then we've now got a developing governance suite, which uses quadratic voting to reach consensus in a really interesting way. So we've got everything that gets you to take off now. And then in the future, we've got these voting systems that allow you to make good decisions and decide how to spend your assets properly and manage your treasury properly.
Definitely. Yeah, that makes total sense. In starting a company, you're going to need to raise capital. You're going to need to make sure that it's allocated properly and that there are the proper treasury rules so that the team isn't, dumping or moving funds and tokens when it's not authorized. So that's really interesting to hear. Definitely an improvement from the current models, and a lot of it's just on handshakes and SAFs that may or may not be enforceable with non-anonymous or even anonymous teams. So with the internet, as you mentioned, with the Sybil attacks, people could set up multiple accounts and pretend to be multiple people and gain more control. And it's hard to tell if it's on the internet and you're not in person and seeing that that's actually only one person. So it's interesting to see how there's those different rules once you move it onto the internet and people can hide behind their keyboards. Absolutely. Yeah. So as you continue to develop this out and now roll it into the market, how do you see this as a top to bottom movement into the market where teams will just start adopting it because they see the incentives, or more of a bottom up where people will actually be requesting, hey, you need to, if you want us to invest in a project, you need to be following the rules of finance.vote and make sure that it's all done properly. How do you see that playing out as you roll into the market?
I think it's both. I think it depends how deep into a bear market we get. The tougher times get, the more we'll get to a point where the user side will start demanding that these things happen. Mm-hmm. So we're already starting to see the trust models fail on quite a lot of crypto projects. And that just gets worse and worse if the market conditions get worse. Mm-hmm. So hopefully we don't get there. But I think we'll increasingly see teams choosing to adopt good practices, because it genuinely makes the system more sustainable into the future. So, you know, we'll increasingly move into an environment where if you haven't raised and haven't set up the project with good practices originally, the market can change from underneath you, and then you're stuck with a project that no one trusts now. So in a kind of trustless environment, it's best to set it up in a way that you can provide good assurances. You'll find if you're sitting in a Telegram room and users are asking you difficult questions over and over again, it's better that you've got a good answer where you can say, look at our vesting system. This is how you're going to get a voice. This is how we did our token launch, and it was all fair. And it's just easier to run a project in a long-term sustainable way if you've got good answers to all those questions. And, you know, using our dApps allows you to answer those questions effectively. So I think it'll be a combination of both. I think, you know, teams will get more mature. I think a lot of these things, people didn't even realize that they were good practices. Mm-hmm. But I think that kind of market intelligence is starting to emerge now, that it kind of need to do it that way. So a bit of both, I think.
Yeah, great answer, Nick. And you're right. I think, you know, sometimes people don't realize how good they have it, or in this case, how bad they have it, and what actually can be improved in the system. And when they take a look at how governance really should be in proper internet organizations, they'll realize how early on the crypto industry is right now. And
absolutely.
You mentioned the Launchpad helping incubate projects and get their tokens locked in, having vesting. And I also want to talk about the finance.vote token as well, because I know that's integrated into the dApp suite and into the ecosystem. Can you talk about the FVT token, how it integrates, how it plays a role in these DAOs starting up?
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, I've been very, very interested in token economics for a long time. So there's lots of different reasons for different utility for the token. So we started the network with what we call day one utility, which was like, we wanted something the token could do from the very first day of the network launching. And the FVT token is essentially spent or burnt for setting up an identity in the system. So you can buy an ID, which is an NFT. So we created one of the first NFTs with both aesthetics and utility. So they're kind of beautiful bits of art, but also it's a voting ID that you can partake in our systems with. So as a kind of slightly tangential project for now, we've got a prediction market where users can vote on the future performance of tokens, and this will eventually trend into being a kind of treasury management type tool. So FVT is used for burning, you know, to gain to transform the fungible token into a non-fungible token, which gives you voting rights from the system, makes you a citizen in our system. So it's a voter ID. And then the FVT token itself is used for token weighted voting, like in other governance systems. But because we use quadratic voting, even small amounts of tokens can give you a meaningful voice in the system. So we use a combination of these NFTs and the token to its power in the system. The more of the FVT token you have, the more influence you'll have in the system in the future. Mm-hmm. But elsewhere, we really like this kind of burning mechanic, and the tokens are spent rather than us collecting them back into the DAO. Quite often we will take percentages of the dApps as they're deployed. So for example, if someone does a token launch on our platform, the FVT token will either be burnt or stored in the DAO, depending on the governance decision. We've also got an auction system for selling NFTs. And we've got an actually new primitive, which we're quite excited about, called the incinerator, which allows people to pay in Ethereum, but then will from a decentralized exchange buy our token and burn it in fees. So we think our token, essentially, the fees get sort of equally distributed to everyone by burning the token. So that's our kind of fee model. And there's kind of going to be a lot more to come down the line, but that's the kind of broad utility set at the moment.
The incinerator, very cool, Nick. That's great to hear. And yeah, I just want to go back to the fact that you're building out all these functionalities for DAOs. You mentioned there that FVT works within the finance.vote DAO, and you really want the community to help shape the future of this as well and be a part of it. And it's not some small centralized project. It's actually a community governed project. And you also have the Decentralized Monetary Fund as well, the DMF. Maybe you could just talk a little bit more about the long-term vision of the finance.vote DAO and the DMF.
Sure. Yeah, so the DMF is to play on the IMF, that we thought that would be pretty funny. And it's kind of takes on a similar sort of role. It manages the monetary policy of our system. So our token holders, in order for this to be sustainable in a long period of time, we want the users to have full control of the token economy. So we're burning a lot of tokens. They can essentially create new tokens. So there's an inflationary, deflationary dynamic that only the users will control. So we might want to give more tokens for liquidity mining in the future, for example, and the users can control that. And all of our systems have these dials that allow them to tune the token economics. So rather than it being fixed for forever, the whole token economy has these kind of movable dials that the users can tune by token voting. And that's kind of what our sort of decentralized monetary fund will do. It controls the monetary policy. It'll also control our treasury. So in the future, we're hoping to have quite a substantial FVT treasury that we can pay people from. And they will also be able to choose the kind of distribution system. So our bank system will be a kind of decentralized payroll. And the DAO there will decide who gets paid for what projects go next. And we've got a kind of dynamic roadmap that if you look at our website, you'll see a little skill tree-like non-linear roadmap, and our users can steer us around that. So yeah, we're quite excited about our DAO. It's not open yet, but it will collect treasury assets in a way that we can hand off power to the users without it being a massive risk to the system. So it'll pick up more power over time. So yeah, we're hoping to do some interesting new things in DAO design there.
Very cool. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that open and seeing the community flood in. And I really do. I looked at the website. I saw the tree map that you show all the different functions for the different dApps that are coming out, and it looks extensive. And I'm excited to see it come to fruition. It's not going to take a day, but I know your team's working hard. And maybe you can give a quick high-level overview of what you and your team are focused on for the next few months and mainly the rest of 2021.
Sure. So yeah, we've been working incredibly hard to kind of get the first iteration of the dApp suite together, which has got the moment five dApps, and we're just over the next few months kind of getting them into a nice working order that we can start to push out to our partners and start launching DAOs. But we've got some more plans in the future. But there's actually some apps on there that aren't even in the roadmap yet. We've got about 12 or 13 roadmaps out. Some of them are kind of iterations of previous ones. So we have a kind of whole governance suite. So our first one, Influence, is a kind of signaling app. And then we've got Proposal and Decision, which is a 3-step decision-making process, where decision is the really high stakes decisions where we're changing our monetary policy and paying out large amounts of money. And that's our kind of governance suite. In that, we use quadratic voting to do AMAs. So we've got an AMA platform in there, which will allow the community to be able to ask questions to their partner projects and all that sort of stuff. And then we've got 2 other components. One is what we call market discovery, prediction and market discovery. So I'm super interested in where futarchy might go. It's very early, but the merger of prediction markets and decentralized governance is going to be huge in the future. And so we're exploring prediction market design and also discovering the price of new assets. So DAOs will want to collect things like NFTs and then auction them to find out what they're worth. And that's kind of what that whole suite of bits does. And then we've got a kind of another period, which is more about social trading and social consensus. So we've got a system called identity.vote, which is going to use our NFTs to do decentralized reputation. And we've also got systems where people can collaboratively trade together. And that's our kind of whole treasury stack, where being able to not just sit on a load of network assets, but be able for a DAO to hold quite a diverse treasury of LP tokens, partner tokens, NFTs. And we've got a suite of application that leads to a kind of decentralized fund system over time. So they're all different subcomponents that sort of stick together to create one big mega DAO, I would say, at the end.
All very exciting. I'm looking forward to following that roadmap. And it's crazy. Your team has, what I've seen, such a larger and more precise roadmap than most projects, because there's just so many things that your team has planned. It's very ambitious. For the viewers that are looking to follow along with these dApps as they roll out, learn more about the finance.vote DAO, what's the best way for them to get involved in the project?
Sure. So good place to start is our Twitter account, which is at finance.vote with the DOT, one big long word, and then join our Telegram. So again, finance.vote, and you'll be able to find our Discord there. And our Discord's just about to get exciting. We've got a kind of a growing governance system in there. We've got these identity gated rooms opening up, and there's going to be lots of opportunities for people to come along and do some work for us. So we've got a whole kind of work-based system coming out where there's people can turn up and do little bits of work, and we're trying really hard to be as inclusive as possible, get people of all skill sets to come in and get involved. So yeah, find our Discord, join our Telegram. It's the best way to find us.
Great. Thank you so much, Nick. I will leave those links in the description box below as well. All the best with all the continued work that your team is working on, and let's follow up in the near future.
Yeah, great talking to you, Ashton.